Hi guys, welcome to Books to Billionaires. Let's learn one powerful lesson that can change your life today. We're going to completely reframe how you think about wealth. We usually think it's all about the hard math, right? Spreadsheets, stock valuations, all that complex stuff. But today, we're shifting away from that and diving deep into the fascinating psychology of how we actually behave. Because as we'll see, when it comes to your money, your mind matters way more than your math skills.
Okay, let's look at this massive number. $8 million. That's the total savings amassed by a guy named Ronald Read by the time he passed away in 2014. Now, hearing that, you're probably thinking, oh, Ronald must have been a hotshot hedge fund manager or maybe a tech CEO. Nope. Actually, Ronald Read was a janitor. He didn't win the lottery, and he absolutely didn't inherit a single dime.
So this begs the ultimate question. How on earth can someone without a fancy Harvard diploma, without a Wall Street background, or even a six-figure salary achieve this kind of massive financial freedom? Well, he simply saved consistently and let the quiet, steady magic of compounding do its thing over decades. It's almost unbelievable, right?
It all comes down to this brilliant quote from Morgan Housel. He points out that financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill. Building wealth is really about mastering your mindset, not just your calculator. Think about it. You could be the smartest analyst in the entire room, but if you lack emotional control, you're going to fail. Financial success is a soft skill, plain and simple.
Section 1. Paying the hidden price and the true cost of market returns. Let's look at what investing actually costs us.
Look at this contrast. On the left, let's say you want to buy a luxury watch. You know exactly what it costs. You look at the price tag, you swipe your card, boom, you pay a highly visible fee. But on the right, we have the stock market. And guys, high returns do not come for free. The market charges an invisible, emotional fee, and that fee is extreme portfolio volatility. You literally have to pay the price in stress and uncertainty.
To really wrap our heads around this fee, let's use a real-world example. If you had the absolute genius foresight to go all in on Netflix a decade ago, you'd be insanely wealthy today. But to get those astronomical gains, you would have had to stomach a terrifying 80% drop in the stock's value back in 2011. Just imagine that for a second, watching 80% of your net worth just vanish in a matter of months. That anxiety, that pit-in-your-stomach fear, that is the price of admission for high returns.
And don't think you can just escape this by playing it safe with a broad index fund. Since 1980, S&P 500 investors have spent a combined 13 years with their portfolios down at least 20% from all-time highs. Worse, they've spent 8 total months down a staggering 50%. When your portfolio drops, it's not a fine for doing something wrong, it is the exact fee you pay for future growth.
Section 2. Escaping the envy trap and the danger of the moving goalpost. Let's tackle the next massive psychological hurdle we all face.
The crazy thing about money is that the goalpost constantly moves. Look at Bill here. He's a doctor making $500,000 a year. By all normal accounts, he's rich, top 1%. But then Bill meets Stan, a CEO making $10 million a year, and suddenly Bill feels poor. Then Stan hangs out with Michael Jordan, worth $2 billion, and Stan feels totally inadequate. And then Michael Jordan goes to a party with Jeff Bezos, sitting on $200 billion. You see the pattern? No matter how high you climb, there is always a bigger fish in the capitalist sea.
And that constant escalation leads us to an unavoidable truth. Capitalism is this phenomenal engine for generating wealth, but it is equally efficient at generating crippling envy. The urge to constantly surpass your neighbors is so dangerous, it leads people to leverage their portfolios to the teeth, engage in insider trading, and literally ruin their reputations just to climb higher up a pyramid that doesn't even have a top.
So the key takeaway for your own life is learning to recognize when you have enough. It's completely irrational to risk the money you already have and the money you actually need to get money you simply don't have and don't need just to impress other people. Seriously, learning to say enough is one of the greatest financial superpowers you could ever develop.
Section 3. Rationalizing the irrational. Why crazy financial decisions make sense to others. Let's look at why judging other people's money habits is just a huge waste of time. Check out this shocking paradox. The lowest-income households in the U.S. spend over $400 a year on lottery tickets. Yet, at the exact same time, over a third of Americans couldn't even come up with $400 for an emergency. On the surface, it seems absolutely crazy to blow your one emergency buffer on a 1 in a million lottery ticket, right?
But wait, when we step into their shoes, a totally different picture emerges. Imagine living paycheck to paycheck. You have zero room to save, no steep career trajectory, and college seems completely out of reach without taking on crushing debt. In that situation, buying a lottery ticket isn't just a bad math equation. To them, it's literally the only accessible way to buy into the dream that wealthier people are already living. When you view it through their specific lens of reality, it suddenly doesn't seem quite so irrational anymore, does it?
So why does this matter to you? Well, understanding this helps you tremendously as an investor because it stops you from blindly copying what everyone else is doing. If you realize that a billionaire is playing a game of wealth preservation while you're playing a game of wealth creation, you won't just copy their portfolio. You won't jump into some crazy volatile meme stock day trade if your personal goal is steady, long-term retirement growth. You see, everyone is playing a completely different game.
Section 4. Surviving Black Swan Events and Preparing for the Unpredictable. Let's talk about why forecasting the macroeconomy is honestly a fool's errand.
Think about the Great Depression, World War II, the 2008 financial crisis, and COVID-19. What do they all have in common? They're all what we call black swan events. These were extreme, completely unpredictable outlier events that reshaped society and financial markets forever. And guess what? Absolutely no economic model predicted a single one of them. Author Nassim Taleb gives us 3 specific criteria for a black swan. First, it's an extreme outlier. Second, it has a massive impact. And third, and this is the most dangerous part, our human nature tricks us into thinking we could have seen it coming in hindsight. But the hard truth is, the events that cause the biggest market fear and the most wealth destruction are the ones we simply cannot foresee. So we really need to stop listening to macroeconomic projections trying to predict the next crash. Instead of predicting, you have to prepare to survive. This is exactly why you should never, ever panic sell during a black swan event. Check this out. If you invested in the S&P 500 over a 20-year period and just stayed fully invested, you'd see a 291% return. But if you panicked and sold, missing just the 4 best-performing days of market recovery, your return plummets to 164%. Trying to time a disaster will absolutely decimate your long-term wealth. You just have to weather the storm.
Section 5. The Optimist's Advantage. Why pessimists sound smart, but optimists win. Let's explore why pessimism is just so dangerously seductive to investors.
Notice how the pessimistic points on the left, things like massive government debt, runaway inflation, new global threats, they sound incredibly intelligent, urgent, and complex. Someone warning you about these things sounds like an absolute expert. Meanwhile, the optimistic points on the right, like slowly rising life expectancy, gradually cheaper sustainable energy, steady computing power growth, honestly, they can sound almost naive in comparison.
But as the brilliant psychologist Daniel Kahneman points out, our tendency to listen to pessimists is literally hardwired into our evolutionary survival instincts. For our ancestors, ignoring a potential threat meant death. Ignoring an opportunity? Well, that just meant a missed meal. We are biologically programmed to give outsized attention to bad news.
When you combine our evolutionary traits with historical reality, it all makes perfect sense. Setbacks and tragedies, they happen overnight. The market crashes in a single day. That creates dramatic, terrifying stories. But progress? Progress happens slowly over decades, making it vague and, frankly, kind of boring to report on. But the long-term reality is that the world actually is getting better. To win as an investor, you have to fight your biological urge to panic at sudden bad news, and instead trust in the slow, compounding reality of human progress.
So here's the bottom line. Building wealth has very little to do with how smart you are and absolutely everything to do with how you behave. It's about enduring that invisible fee of volatility, completely ignoring the envy trap, and remaining a stubborn optimist. So looking at your own portfolio today, I want you to ask yourself, are you managing your money using math, or are you managing your mind? Thanks for watching Books to Billionaires. If you found this explainer helpful, please subscribe for more powerful book insights and life-changing lessons. You'll find all the book links in the description below.